What's going on, y'all? So this is an interesting video. Yeah, Sony gave their update on what they thought about China and combating the tariffs. Interesting, good news that you wouldn't expect. Like I said, Sony's on a positive spree. That's good. It says Sony CFO Lin Tao says that they have already moved production of PlayStation 5 consoles sold in the US outside of China. What that means is that Sony is not going to jack up the prices of those consoles because they're not getting hit. They're doing the same thing Nintendo did, where they wanted as many Switch 2s in America as possible to where they're like, for the rest of the year, we don't have to worry about touching that price. And if some of that was false, then they will just jack up the price. To say that tariffs are not in effect to me is completely stupid. They absolutely affect everything. Really do. The thing is that there's not a set price point to where people could be like, all right, now let's stop being retards and move on. You know what I mean? Um, and what I mean by that is that every time a new goalpost is moved with the tariffs, the corporation is there to take advantage. And when the price is reversed, they don't reverse. That's the problem. See, because there's manipulation going on with it, and there's people strategizing to use that to their advantage to be even more of a hounding vampire upon the human race because they're just taking more money from them with their problems. It's like two people have problems, but yet these people suffer because of it. So that's my thing on that. It's that's the thing. And no, I'm not blaming one politician because of that. No, this system has been in effect for a very long time. I'm just saying in general that when it comes to this type of stuff, and just hear me out, there's definitely going to be some adjustments. Definitely, if you're outside of that spectrum, looking at it from like a Japanese, or looking at it from a different point of view, they're just like, no, we're adjusting as well. You know what I mean? It's not happening. And like I said, who suffers for that? The people do. But getting back to this, they also plan to move production of peripherals sold in the US to outside China by the end of September 2025. We see that, right? They're changing around production here. So, about gaming consoles, so we are diversifying our supply chain. As for consoles, we have already transferred the production. And if we include peripherals, so the transfer to outside China, we will be completing that by the end of the first half. Hardware sold in the US are now sourced outside China. So Sony doesn't have any plans, it seems, to jack up the price of the consoles. If anything, in that sense, they'll punish some other place like Nintendo does. Just pay for the old console nobody's buying anymore. I'm not touching the Switch 2. They'll find ways around that or jack the price up of that accessory over there. Nobody's going to really buy that. That's not on the main round. Not like that, but what I mean is that you could see the idea of not the new stuff. And then Sony don't punish the US because that's their biggest base. But they'll punish Japan. Nintendo didn't punish Japan though. And they made a Japanese only version so they could make it cheaper. And their games are cheaper over there too due to the market. They can get games for like $60, 57 or whatever, where people are paying 70 over here and whatever. Interesting stuff, huh? But that's how it is. Just because of that change. You can tell they care about their hometown. About PS5 pricing, Sony says it is hard to comment at the moment, but they're not telling you price increases are coming. But they're not telling you it's permanently no. But this obviously is an indicator for Sony still wants to be affordable. We kind of see them kind of going that route with the PS6 that those leaks are true. They will take into account annual profits, lifetime value, sell-in volume, expected content sales, and consumer receptiveness to prices, and then they would like to flexibly decide on the prices. So this is not going to be this quarter or maybe this year. Interesting game. I say that's smart if you want to still worry about Nintendo and not just let them come in and new things. But what did I say before? They're fine, so they realize it's not necessary. and you're making record profits. Don't do it. It's good for planning for sure. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Sony thinking that you kind of have to do that. Definitely if you are a Japanese or somebody outside of the American spectrum. Now going over, what did Genki just say? Because guys, let's think about this. About PS5 pricing, right? Sony says it's hard to comment at the moment. They will take into account annual profits. Sony says it expects less damage from Trump's tariffs. Sony originally expected 100 billion yen, 680 million impact. Remember when they said that? And they were going to adjust around it and people thought something was going to happen? Well, it turns out it's only 476 million. That's a huge drop. 204 million decline. That's good. The decline in impact is mainly due to Sony taking the steps to diversify their supply chain and stockpiling strategic inventory of items such as PlayStation 5 consoles. They got ahead of the game, so did Nintendo. So that's why that's happening. We're going to go to the site and we're going to get into this. Sony raises its profit forecasts. So they now are raising the annual, or they say they were worried about that. So if we do our detective work here, I don't see how Sony could be raising the prices. Doesn't make any sense, according to what they're saying. Japanese entertainment and electronics company Sony said Thursday that its profits surged 23% in the last quarter from the year before, as damage from U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs was less than it had expected. The Tokyo-based manufacturer reported its April-June profit totaled 259 billion yen, or 1.8 billion, up from 210 billion yen. Quarterly sales edged up 2% to 2.6 trillion, 17.7 billion, as demand grew for games and network services, imaging solutions, and also sensors. Sorry, imaging solutions and sensors. There's like camera lenses, networking. Sony has other things as well. I said they're making a lot of money, more than they ever had, ever. The maker of PlayStation game machines, digital cameras, Walkman, audio players, and Spider-Man movies said those positive factors did offset the negative impact from unfavorable exchange rates. Sony said its network business also was drawing more subscribers to its online services. So they're raising their forecasts by 0.3 on the billion chart. It's still lower than what it earned in the previous fiscal year, but that makes sense though. Sony now estimates the impact, and that's when they lowered it to 476 million right here. So that's pretty much it when it comes to this type of subject, but there's things to talk about here. So when it comes to competition, Sony is playing their hands very carefully, and they realize even with the cancels, they can get away with shit. See, man, this is those opportunities where Microsoft should have capitalized on those 2.5-year windows, man, and really nailed it. Nintendo's coming in. We know they're capitalizing. They ain't missing a window. Now Sony is losing market share to them since June. They've come in. Nintendo's taking over worldwide. They're not going to outbeat them in development. But what Sony's going to do is play a different game. You see, they're getting Microsoft's games now. They're branching out more. They're trying to increase their publishing power like Microsoft. And I've called it. Remember I said there's a publishing war coming. Get ready. So now Nintendo's going to do what they do, exclusives only, and their publishing power is going to be strong as ever. Microsoft's publishing power is going to be stronger by branching out and continue doing what they're doing. Sony's publishing power was already strong with Money Hacks and all that, but now if they're doing that strategy and branching out with live service, their publishing is going to increase. So now we see this big, grand publishing war and topping the charts. And I'm telling y'all right now, that's a big war that's coming. Get ready for it. The profit-only publishing war. You see? Because now let's see who can make the most money. You see, when it gets more about business rather than about exclusives, now I'm going to be making more money than you. You see that type of stuff. But in the gaming game, not grabbing stuff outside of it, but it's like who in that sense can do that, right? Whereas Nintendo's doing that and also being the saint in a sort of sense, if you get what I mean, in their world to a degree. But with Bowser being the president, yeah, that's going to be tough. And Wario. Yeah. All right, y'all. So, yeah, this is a new future topic though. PlayStation versus Xbox, and we include Nintendo in the future publishing wars. Whereas like Nintendo, obviously I can understand could be different because it's like, yeah, but they're only doing that on their platform. Whereas like Sony's doing their multi-platform, like Microsoft in a certain sense, along with Microsoft doing that. So what type of war is going to be coming out of that? And what's going to be going on in the digital realm with the streaming and the cloud next gen as well. That's another thing that's going to be going on. And yeah, getting who's games. There's always something moving, you know what I mean? No, that statement war never ends in that sense of like it's moving to something else. And this is what it's moving forward to. So Sony got ahead, and then Sony's deciding not to be a villain, meaning they're not taking advantage. It's like EA said they're not going to do it. And a couple other people. No. Some people said we're doing $49.99. We're not doing that. And you're doing yourself a favor because you would just destroy yourself, lose profit, get layoffs because you decided to make a dumb decision. When you could say, no, here. Oh, okay. Now you sold a couple million. You got a couple million people in your world. You made an extra 80 to 100 million profit, and things are fine. You can make your next game or continue, right? Rather than just destroying everything for a stupid decision that you don't have to do. All right, y'all, let me know what y'all think about this, okay? So, yeah, this is Sony saying we're not doing it, and Nintendo saying they're not doing it. They're both said we're not jacking up the prices of our consoles in America, and they both got ahead of the ball game. If you guys don't remember, Nintendo did the same thing. So, Japanese being smart again. Later, y'all. Peace out. Ponies, you still sit down.